Auf Wiedersehen, Pet captured the friendship, laughter, and struggles of a group of migrant construction workers, becoming an unforgettable cultural icon of the 1980s and 1990s. But behind the spotlight, many talented actors passed away under heartbreaking circumstances, from devastating illnesses to unforeseen accidents. Let's look back at the stars who helped build the legend and honor the legacy they left behind. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's dive into it. Michael Angelus as Mickey Startup. Michael Angelus, full name Nicholas Michael Angelus, was born on April 29, 1944 in Paddington, London. He portrayed Mickey Startup, a cunning and scheming businessman, in Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, from 1983 to 1986 when he was 39 years old, bringing an emotional depth to the character that audiences couldn't look away from. His private life, however, was filled with lingering tensions and personal tragedy. His second marriage to famed actress Helen Worth, which lasted a decade, seemed like a haven of happiness, but ended in disgrace. In 2001, when the press exposed his affair with model Jennifer Kolaschi, who later became his third wife, Angelus's public image collapsed. Helen filed for divorce in bitterness. Though the two remained friends after their separation, the fallout left him in a long state of depression. In 2009, his older brother, actor Paul Angelus, died suddenly, dealing Michael a heavy emotional blow. He nearly vanished from the stage, turning down major projects and appearing only occasionally in shows like Midsummer Murders and The Bill. Although he was the unmistakable narrator of Thomas and Friends for 21 years, after 2012 he quietly stepped away from the spotlight and chose a more secluded life. Angelus was diagnosed with diabetes, but considered treatment more of an inconvenience than a threat. The illness slowly wore down his health, leading to a sudden heart attack on May 30, 2020, at his home in Thatcham, Berkshire. He died at the age of 76. Though his passing was quiet, the estimated $3 million in net worth he left behind reflected a life of quiet dedication. Pat Roach as Brian Bomber Busbridge. Francis Patrick Roach was born on May 19, 1937, in Birmingham, England. He made a lasting impression playing Brian Bomber Busbridge, a big, gentle-hearted builder, in the iconic series Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1983 to 1986, when he was 46 years old. The role catapulted him from the wrestling ring to the television screen. But behind the towering frame and warm smile was a life slowly worn down by tragedy and silent sacrifice. Roach was once a judo and heavyweight wrestling champion in Britain and Europe, but severe arthritis forced him to retire from the ring. Leaving the sport also meant a major financial setback, prompting him to open a scrapyard and a gym to make ends meet. In 1988, his close friend and fellow actor Roy Kinnear died suddenly on set. Roach became visibly subdued, often expressing grief in rare interviews. He once said, "We're big lads, but we bruise easily. Every loss leaves a dent no one can see." On top of that, years of injuries meant he lived in constant pain but chose to endure it silently. At the height of his acting career, appearing as villains in Indiana Jones, Red Sonja, and Willow, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in the late 1990s. Roach fought the disease quietly, refusing pity and continuing to appear on screen until he physically couldn't anymore. He passed away on July 17, 2004, at the age of 67, and was buried at Bromsgrove Cemetery. Roach left behind an estimated net worth of $2 million, built from years of grueling physical work and unforgettable roles in British and Hollywood films. James Booth as Kenny Ames. James Booth was born on December 19, 1927, in Croydon, England. When he was 59 years old, he appeared in Season 2 of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1986, as Kenny Ames, a suave but cunning British expatriate in Marbella who left a lasting impression despite only appearing in a few episodes. Though not a leading role, Booth made Kenny unforgettable with his enigmatic presence and piercing stare. But Booth's life, much like his character Kenny, was a drifting journey between glory and bitterness. After his breakout success in Zulu, 1964, his career fell into decline throughout the 1970s. Unable to secure meaningful roles, he found himself financially unstable, often taking lesser-known parts just to make a living. Booth once admitted it was a time when he felt like a ghost of myself, suspended between a radiant past and a cold present. Career pressures not only wore down his spirit, but also strained his family life. Married to Paula Delaney in 1960, with whom he had 4 children, Booth carried lingering guilt over his long absences. His packed filming schedule in Hollywood kept him away from his wife and kids for long stretches, and late in life he confessed, "I've played hundreds of roles, but fatherhood is the one I perform the worst." In his final years, he lived in a state of atonement, trying to reconnect with his family in the precious time he had left. The death of his close friend and longtime co-star Stanley Baker in 1976 from cancer dealt a huge emotional blow. It was around that time Booth began experiencing mild strokes, early signs of declining health. Still, he kept acting, driven by an unshakable love for the stage and screen. James Booth passed away on August 11, 2005, in Hadley, Essex, at the age of 77, after battling illness. His final film, Keeping Mum, was dedicated to his memory, a farewell to a devoted artist. He left behind an estimated net worth of $3 million, thanks to iconic roles in Zulu, The Long Good Friday, and a film and TV career spanning over half a century. Michael Sheard as Herr Grunwald. Michael Sheard was born on June 18, 1938, in Aberdeen, Scotland. He appeared in the first season of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1983 to 1984, when he was around 45 years old playing Herr Grunwald, a stern and cold German site foreman who added tension and confrontation to the series. Although he appeared in only a few episodes, he left a strong impression with his authoritative presence and gaunt features. Born into a strictly religious family, with a father who had served as a military chaplain, Sheard grew up haunted by discipline and expectation. That strict upbringing not only shaped the steel he brought to his villainous roles, but also left behind a difficult emotional scar, the sense of never being good enough to be truly recognized. Although formally trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, he was often undervalued and plagued by self-doubt, especially as he repeatedly portrayed ruthless characters on screen. In contrast, Sheard's personal life was warm and quiet alongside his wife Rosalind Moir, whom he was married to for over 40 years, and their 3 children. But even in that safe haven, he carried silent regrets. His long and unstable acting career meant he was often away from his family, missing key moments in his children's lives. He once said the most painful thing wasn't the roles he didn't get, but the dinners he missed, when his daughter sat quietly at the table alone. The pain deepened when his close friend and Doctor Who co-star Ian Marter passed away suddenly in 1986. It was a deep emotional blow that caused Sheard to withdraw even more, finding solace only in fan conventions and autograph signings, lingering warmth from his faded spotlight. By the 1990s, a poor investment decision wiped out much of his savings. Once a familiar face on screen, Sheard had to scrape by with minor roles and low-budget indie projects. He never publicly spoke about it, but those close to him admired his quiet resilience. In 2004, Sheard was diagnosed with cancer. Though his health declined, he continued to lend his voice to small projects and made appearances at Star Wars conventions as a final thank you to his fans. He passed away on August 31, 2005, at the age of 67, at his home on the Isle of Wight, leaving behind his devoted wife and 3 children, the only ones who truly saw the tenderness beneath his hardened screen persona. Despite enduring loss, financial hardship, and professional isolation, Sheard is remembered as a devoted artist, leaving a lasting mark on audiences and a modest net worth of approximately $1 million built over 4 decades of quiet commitment to stage and screen. Brian Pringle as Arthur Pringle. Brian Pringle was born on January 19, 1935, in Sheffield, England. He left a lasting impression on audiences playing Arthur Pringle, the sarcastic and uptight pub landlord in the first season of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1983 to 1984, when he was 48 years old. His character not only provided comic relief, but embodied a quintessential English archetype: arrogant, standoffish, yet oddly sympathetic. Behind the stage lights, however, was a life quietly worn down by personal grief. In the late 1960s, Pringle's younger brother died in a boating accident, leaving a profound psychological wound. He rarely spoke of it publicly, but close friends revealed that the pain stayed with him for the rest of his life. The tragedy marked a noticeable shift in his demeanor. He became more reserved, smiled less, and often avoided large social gatherings. After the death of his wife, actress Anne Jameson, in 1999, Pringle lived in near-total solitude in Northamptonshire. With no partner and no stage lights left, he spent his time reading, writing an unpublished memoir, and tending a small garden behind their old brick house. In his final years, he battled heart failure, a result of a body worn thin by age. Brian Pringle passed away on May 15, 2003, at the age of 68, and was laid to rest beside his beloved wife at St. Lawrence Churchyard, the same place they used to visit every weekend in their youth. He left behind a strong artistic legacy and a modest net worth of around $700,000, earned from over 4 decades of work in film, television, and theater. Gordon Tuttus as Joe Saugus. Gordon Tuttus was born on October 25, 1941. When he was 61 years old, he appeared in Season 3 of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 2002, as Joe Saugus, a calm, wise negotiator steeped in Cree tradition. Though he appeared in only a few episodes, the character brought rare indigenous dignity and cultural depth that mirrored Tuttus's real-life identity. His path was anything but easy. As a child, Gordon was removed from his family and forced into a Catholic residential school under Canada's assimilation policy. There, he was banned from speaking his native language and subjected to physical and emotional hardship. The isolation, shame, and cultural erasure left lasting scars, but also lit a fire in him to protect Cree heritage at all costs. Tuttus's family life was filled with both love and tragedy. Married to Irene Sesikwasis since 1965, they had 6 children together. But in 1997, their daughter Glynis died of cancer, leaving behind 4 young children. Without hesitation, Gordon and Irene adopted all 4 grandchildren, even though he was already over 55. Every night, despite his grief and packed schedule, he read Cree stories to them, treating it as a sacred duty to pass on their ancestral traditions. He bore another deep loss when his spiritual mentor, Chief Dan George, died in 1981, the man who had guided him into the world of art. That moment solidified Tuttus's resolve to open doors for Indigenous youth. He founded the Saskatchewan Native Theatre Company and devoted most of his life to teaching, mentoring, and inspiring others. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at only $1 million, because most of what he earned went into community projects, cultural preservation, and helping Indigenous youth. He once said, "Fame isn't for power, it's for responsibility." Gordon Tuttus passed away on July 5, 2011, at St. Paul's Hospital in Saskatoon due to pneumonia complications at the age of 69. He was buried at Poundmaker Cree Nation, among his loved ones, and on the sacred land of his ancestors. Ricardo Montes as Fess. Ricardo Montes, born Levy, Isaac Atias, on September 20th, 1923 in Gibraltar, appeared in Season 2 of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1986, when he was 63 years old, playing Fess, a meticulous and enthusiastic police officer. It was a culturally rich supporting role that added levity to the series. Though brief, the part continued a trend in his career, portraying friendly, slightly naive foreigners who brought warmth and humor. Off-screen, however, Montes carried the weight of typecasting. From Mind Your Language to countless scattered roles, he was rarely offered parts outside of stereotypical Latin portrayals. He once shared that he felt like living inside a box, locked shut by the audience. Despite his popularity, he was never given a chance to show his full range, a reality that burdened him deeply in his final years. His personal life was also marked by tragedy. In 1995, his youngest son Miguel died in a car accident, a devastating blow to a father who had dreamed of seeing his son follow him into acting. Montes became more withdrawn, took only minor roles, and spent more time with his wife and granddaughter in an effort to make up for lost time. He deeply regretted having spent most of his life on film sets instead of with family. The sudden death of his close friend Barry Evans in 1997, his co-star from Mind Your Language, further silenced him. Montes lived in seclusion in Richmond, occasionally visiting Gibraltar during his later years. He passed away on October 26, 2010, in Marbella, Spain, after a long battle with cancer, at the age of 87. His net worth was estimated at only $500,000, a stark reflection of the harsh reality faced by an actor confined to supporting roles. Patty Joyce as the ghost. Patrick Francis Joyce was born on May 31, 1923, in Trieste, Italy. A nephew of literary giant James Joyce, his life took a vastly different path, somber, tragic, and haunting. When he was in his 60s, he played the ghost, a strange, silent, almost supernatural figure whose eerie presence mirrored Patty's own reality. From childhood, darkness loomed over Joyce's life. In 1926, his father, a Czech banker, committed suicide after embezzling funds, forcing his mother to return to Ireland with 3 young children in shame. Raised amid guilt and family trauma, Patty became increasingly introverted. As an adult, he went through a brief marriage that ended in divorce, leading to an estranged relationship with his only son, something he regretted until his final days. His only solace was acting, but in a career spanning more than 40 years, he was almost always cast in minor roles, from Coronation Street and Z-Cars to Doctor Who and EastEnders. He never had a lead role, never a true moment to shine. Friends described him as increasingly withdrawn, frequently intoxicated, and visibly sorrowful, especially after his sister died suddenly in a car accident. Later, a close actor friend of his took their own life, another emotional blow to an already exhausted soul. Patty Joyce passed away on July 27, 2000, in London, at the age of 77 after a stroke. He left behind an estimated net worth of just $300,000, a modest figure for someone who had devoted his life to the arts. Michael Elfik as Magawan. Michael John Elfik was born on September 19, 1946 in Chichester. When he was 37 years old, he appeared in Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1983 to 1986, as Magawan, an abrasive, violent Irish laborer who brought fear and instability to the group. Though a minor character, Elfik made him unforgettable with a terrifying realism, so convincing that many viewers couldn't tell where the acting ended and the truth began. Behind the scenes, Elfik battled a relentless alcohol addiction. From the late 1980s onward, he frequented rehab centers but never stayed sober for long. At one point, he admitted to drinking 2 liters of alcohol daily, ravaging both his body and mind. Every time he stepped in front of a camera was a battle against trembling hands and blurred vision. Despite the success of Boone, which drew 11 million viewers, he never truly enjoyed his fame. His last emotional anchor was his partner Julia Alexander, a humble teacher who stood by him since 1963. She was not just his wife, but his savior, holding him back from complete collapse. But in 1996, Julia died of cancer, leaving him spiraling into a void. He admitted he considered ending his life, and though he tried to return to acting, he was only a ghost of the man he once was. Family, friends, and career, all slowly unraveled under the weight of his self-destruction. The deaths of close friends like Kenneth Moore and Michael Williams deepened his isolation. For a time, Elfik lived in near exile in Portugal, where in one drunken episode he grabbed a gun and chased car thieves. Later, when cast in EastEnders as Harry Slater, his drinking made the role unsustainable, and the character was written off screen. On September 7, 2002, Elfik died of a heart attack at his home in London, just 12 days before his 56th birthday. He reportedly left behind about $700,000, mostly from his Boone heyday, much of it already eroded by the years. Alan Igbon as Addy. Alan Olanrewaju Igbon was born on May 29, 1952, in Hume, Manchester. When he was 31 years old, he took on the role of Addy in seasons 1 and 2 of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1983 to 1986, a quiet but emotionally complex bodyguard whose silence often spoke louder than words. It was a character perfectly suited to Igbon's acting philosophy. Subtle, introspective, and deeply human. Alan Igbon didn't simply play characters, he embodied them. His performances were marked by a quiet intensity, giving voice to those the world often chose to ignore. In the groundbreaking film Scum, 1979, he portrayed Meekin, a young inmate consumed with rage after witnessing the unjust death of a fellow prisoner. It was a role that forced audiences to confront the brutal realities of the prison system. A few years later, he delivered another unforgettable performance as Logo in Boys from the Black Stuff, a haunting symbol of the working-class men left behind during Liverpool's economic collapse. These roles made him a cultural touchstone, a quiet revolutionary on screen. But behind the camera, Igbon's life was marked by sorrow. The most devastating blow came with the loss of his brother, the one person he leaned on most. That tragedy cast a long shadow, plunging him into a deep and enduring depression that he rarely spoke of, but which never fully lifted. As time passed, work became increasingly scarce. The bright lights dimmed, but Alan remained true to himself. He never married, but shared a steady private life with his partner Sam, a relationship grounded not in ceremony, but in quiet, unwavering companionship. They didn't need legal papers or grand declarations, just the comfort of presence. On December 9, 2020, Alan Igbon passed away from complications related to pneumonia. He was 68 years old. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated to be around $500,000, a modest sum by industry standards, but reflective of a career built on integrity rather than fame. Misty Upam as Dawn. Misty Ann Upam was born on July 6, 1982, in Kalispell, Montana, and raised on a Native American reservation in Auburn, Washington. When she was just 20 years old, she gave a breakout performance as Dawn in Season 3 of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 2002. Her character, a fierce, determined young woman, reflected Misty's own spirit, but her life, though short, was shadowed by overwhelming darkness. From a young age, Misty was a victim of sexual abuse and gang rape. As her fame grew with roles in Frozen River, 2008, and August, Osage County, she was again reportedly assaulted, this time at the Golden Globes, allegedly by a member of the Weinstein team, while others looked away. Beyond trauma, she also faced systemic racism and exclusion. As a Native woman in a white industry, Misty was consistently pushed aside, no matter her talent. Her personal world shattered further when her father, the closest person to her, died in 2012. Left alone to battle severe depression and a stalling career, she disappeared multiple times. Her family pleaded with police, who responded with indifference. On October 5, 2014, Misty walked away from her sister's home and never returned. 11 days later, her body was found at the base of a cliff. No one had searched. No one had helped. Her family believes that if police had acted sooner, she might still be alive. The cause of death was injuries from a fall, but whether it was an accident, suicide, or murder remains unclear. Misty died at the age of 32, leaving a painful void in the Native American community. She became a symbol for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women (MMIW) movement. Despite an Independent Spirit Award nomination for Frozen River, she left behind a net worth of only about $300,000, a modest sum that reflected not just industry injustice, but the tragedy of a silenced talent. Sagenol Grant as Medicine Man. Sagenol Morgan Grant was born on July 20, 1936, in Pawnee, Oklahoma. When he appeared on screen as the Medicine Man in Season 3 of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet in 2002, he was 66 years old, carrying with him the spirit of his ancestors to embody a character of calm wisdom and profound spiritual depth, a true guardian of Native tradition. His life was not without loss. As a child, he lost his first spiritual mentor, an elder who had taught him how to listen to the wind and the drums. That loss became his first emotional scar, but also the beginning of a lifelong spiritual journey. Within the Native community, Grant witnessed the passing of many friends, not to war, but to a healthcare system riddled with discrimination, to poverty, and neglect. These realities forged him into a cultural warrior, both on screen and off. Never marrying, Sagenol Grant dedicated his entire life to his community. As a public speaker, musician, powwow dancer, and hereditary chief of the Sac and Fox Nation. Though he appeared in Breaking Bad, The Lone Ranger, Community, and the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, he always chose roles with cultural depth over superficial fame. He received numerous honors, including the American Legacy Award, the Living Legend title, and a NAMA Music Award for his album Don't Let the Drums Go Silent. Sagenol passed away peacefully in his sleep on July 27, 2021, at the age of 85, due to natural causes. His net worth was estimated at just $200,000, a modest figure, but fitting for a man who gave everything to others. William Simons as gamekeeper. Clifford William Cumberbatch. Simons was born on November 17, 1940, in Swansea. He left a lasting impression through his role as the gamekeeper in Seasons 1 and 2 of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1983 to 1986, when he was 43 years old. The role of a stern and devoted caretaker mirrored his own calm and upright nature in real life. William Simons's personal life was marked by deep losses. His first marriage ended in a bitter divorce, leaving an emotional wound he rarely spoke about. It was only years later that he found peace again beside his second wife, Janie, a gentle, patient partner who stood by him through thick and thin. But Janie fell seriously ill and passed away after a long battle, plunging Simons into extended grief. He often avoided the press, finding solace only in fan letters and memories from the set. The pain didn't stop there. In 2018, a close colleague from Heartbeat, the series he worked on for nearly 2 decades, died suddenly. That loss seemed to steal the last bit of joy he had left. Shortly after, Simons was diagnosed with cancer, yet he continued to live quietly in his old London home. He passed away on June 21st, 2019, at the age of 78, closing the chapter on a career marked by empathy and quiet excellence. His net worth was estimated at around $1 million, built largely through a steady, unpretentious television career. The stars of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet left behind an unforgettable legacy, even as harsh fate took many of them far too soon. What moment from the series do you remember most? And which actor moved you the deepest? Share your story and hit subscribe to help us honor these legends.